Your ex is also likely suffering after breaking up with you. I'm going to talk to you about that and sort of help you see into the heart and the mind of your ex as far as what they're feeling and why they are most likely having difficulty with this breakup as well. Number one, if you are in no contact right now, that is, you're not contacting your ex after they broke up with you, you're not trying to get back together, you're not watching their stories, basically what I talk about in so many of my videos and podcasts. Basically, if you are staying away from them, then they will have concern from your silence because they can't have doubt about breaking up with you if you won't leave them alone because they are set against you. They've usually had weeks or months, maybe even longer, to go back and forth about this in their mind. This isn't just a new idea for them. They have molded over. They probably talked themselves into staying. Let me wait through the weekend. Let me see if my feelings come back like I want them to. Things like that. And so that's why when they're breaking up with you, you think, who is this person? They seem so cold. I can't reason with them. I can't talk to them. It's like they're a different person. But what happens is when you are silent and not chasing them, if you are continuing to pester, to contact, to ask them to reconsider, the desire to get away from you, even if it's not what they are going to want long term, in the short term, it feels like freedom. It feels like a win if they can get away from you because it actually feels maybe like they are achieving something. And so then we, again, bring in the Zeigarnik effect, which is basically where when something is unfinished, there's a desire to finish it and to get over that hump, to just do it. And so if they are wanting the breakup, a lot of times they will put their fingers in their ears and shake their heads and say, no, 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 won't listen to you, won't listen to reason, won't even listen sometimes to their own heart because they are convinced they have to break up with you. And so everything else is just noise. And if you are trying to prevent them from it, then it seems like happiness and everything they want is on the other side of you. And so they will pull away from you strongly. But when you are silent, first of all, they don't have to put as much energy into getting away from you. And it doesn't feel like such an amazing reward or such an amazing place to get to. Because a lot of times when you're striving for something and it seems like you can't get there, it makes it feel more valuable. And so they raise the value on getting away from you. They create this paradise place that is what they're going to get to if they can just get away from you, if you'll just leave them alone, if they can just block you or whatever they have to do. And that's why it's so important to stay away and be silent, because only then can they actually doubt, because they're not having to put as much energy into getting away from you, and because they can start to think that you can stay away from them, which means you can move on. And so they kind of don't have the luxury anymore of only focusing on the breakup and getting away from you. Now they have to actually look at the consequences, because this is new. Before, it was just a concept in their head of breaking up with you. Now they're having to live with it. So that's the only chance you really have of getting them to reconsider, is to give them that silence. And so that silence is what can cause them to doubt and be concerned that maybe they made the wrong decision. And that is when their suffering can begin. Number two, the right decision burden. So basically the concept is that sometimes people break up with someone even though it hurts, even though it's difficult, and they push through, they get themselves through by their belief that this is the right decision. And they kind of use that as their fuel. This is the right decision. This is the right decision. And that is also something that they can do when you're continuing to pursue them. They can use that as the carrot on the stick, so to speak, that keeps them pushing and striving to get away from you. And when you're still contacting them and interacting with them, it's easy for them to think, yes, it's the right decision to break up, because they are not having to experience any of the negative consequences, which would be losing you, losing intimacy with you. That is the day-to-day intimacy of finding out how your day was, telling you how their day was, and keeping up with your life and sharing their life with you, letting them see inside of you and you seeing inside of them. That's intimacy, and they can miss that, but they can't when you are not allowing them to miss it, because you're staying there. And so a lot of people think that keeping communication going is a good thing in the situation, but it's not, because it doesn't allow them to feel the consequences. And it doesn't allow them to question their decision, because if you are silent, it can allow them to feel the pressure of, well, I thought this was the right decision, but what if it's not? And if their emotions are giving them a hard time because they're missing you, they're missing the intimacy and the history that you two had, which if you were in a long-term relationship with someone, especially if it's 6 months or more, we get into those, especially a year, 2 years, 3 years, there's so much history that they can remember, they can feel, and they can miss, because that's what creates intimacy and this connection is that we have this history together. It can make them feel like you are their family. And if you will leave them alone, then the pain of this, the separation anxiety of this can impact them. But only if you will leave them alone. They can actually have the burden of wondering, is this decision right? And if their emotions are making it more difficult, they are more likely to question that decision and if it's right. But when they're trying to get away from you, it seems like that not only is the decision right, but if they could ever get the result of it, that they would be happy because they would get away from you and they wouldn't have to keep trying and hustling and dealing with the drama. So again, if you're looking for a reason to back off, I'm giving you plenty. Before I get to number 3, get my reunion blueprint. It's only $7. It's at reunionblueprint.com. It's a streamlined guide to getting your ex back, things I don't talk about on YouTube and that I don't even talk about in the emergency breakup kit. It's the reunion blueprint. It's only $7 and you can get that at reunionblueprint.com. And a lot of people in the comments have said, how do I book a coaching session with you? You can do that at myexbackcoach.com. You'll see my name or you'll see coaching. That's at myexbackcoach.com for a private coaching session. And also the reunionblueprint.com. Number 3, the loss of emotional investment. This takes some time for them to feel, but if they can feel this, and usually it's when it was in a relationship that didn't have a lot of bickering and fighting, but had a lot of just good, wholesome memories and moments, along with the passionate moments that, of course, are important as well. But the fact that they put so much time into this and emotions into this, when they feel that they have lost it, which they don't feel until you leave them alone, because then they actually get to exist in a world where they are not in the relationship with you and they are not experiencing you. So there's 2 things there. Not in the relationship with you, but also not experiencing your presence. That's when they can feel the loss of that emotional investment. And it feels like loss. And this is even if they are still thinking that the breakup was probably a good idea, they will feel the negative of this loss of emotional investment. And so it can contribute to them questioning that idea. We're looking for several things that can cause them to look at the concept again of breaking up with you and to doubt it, or at least to feel like it's not an easy answer and it's not necessarily what makes them the most happy. We're just trying to create some doubts. That's all we need is a little crack in the armor, and you add more time to that day after day, it can become something big. But feeling like they have lost part of their life because they invested it into the relationship and into you, and feeling like that they have lost some of their emotions, that they have given those to you, that they have spent some of their love on you, so to speak. That's where they can feel also that they lost some of that. But again, they can only feel it when you are not there and they feel like the relationship is 100% over. Number 4 is fear of replacement. This is something else that being in no contact can cause them to feel, because once they get the idea that you can stay away from them and it's been 2 weeks, 4 weeks, a month and a half, 2 months, then they start to realize they can be replaced, which is a negative for anybody. Even if you don't think you want the relationship, it's still not fun to think about being replaced. Again, this is another negative on the list of the consequences we want them to feel, that your silence will cause them to feel, and they can struggle, they can suffer. And of course, we're not wanting them to physically suffer, but we are wanting them to experience the consequences of their actions. That's very important. And so if you do get to that point where it's been a month or so, you haven't heard from them, and you're wanting to kind of put your foot on the gas, post a picture online of you with a group of people, mixed company, ideally. Let them see that you are out, you are being social, because they can think, is that person interested in him? Is that person interested in her? And they can remember back to when they were, to those early days of how attractive you were to them. And that can get them thinking someone else could take you, someone else could replace them, and you could be happy with that person. And that will also, it will cause them to review their decision most of the time. It's not fun. And if they've already got all these other doubts, these other difficulties, these other negatives that are just cracks in the armor, it is contributing to the whole thing coming crashing down. So you want to stay back and you want to do things like that. If you do post that picture, I do suggest you don't do it more than you normally post, and that it's not you on a date, because even though that can kind of sound like a good idea, like you're trying to get them to be jealous and all that, I've seen that blow up in people's faces too many times, so I don't suggest that. But posting you in a group of people out somewhere where if your ex sees it, they don't really know. I mean, are you on a date with somebody? Are you out in this group? Is this person interested in you? Again, the Zeigarnik effect, where there's this question and they want to know the answer. It's unfinished business and they want to close it with a nice little bow, and they don't have that information. It can cause some preoccupation because they'll try to figure it out, they'll think about it, and it will strike them. Am I being replaced? Can this person move on without me easily? And even though they may think that the breakup's the right decision, it does still hurt. Even if you think, well, they don't want to be with me, why would they care? Be in that situation and experience someone getting someone else or moving on, and you will know what it feels like. It's kind of odd. It can make you question. And if there's any doubt, and then this happens, these things add up. Number 5 is one I haven't mentioned before, that they doubt their own maturity. A lot of times when people will break up with someone and they do get that silence from you and they have to sit with it, sometimes they will wonder, am I able to commit to someone? I broke a commitment. Am I a good partner? Is this going to be something that repeats itself? Should I go back and give this relationship another chance? This is something else that can be caused by your silence. And it is a form of suffering because it causes them to wonder if they made a mistake and if it's going to cost them in the future. And it, along with the other things that I've mentioned, it's something that can move them forward in the process of beginning to be comfortable with the idea of you two getting back together, because the longer they doubt, the longer they feel like they aren't certain it was the right decision, does this represent immaturity on my part, things like that, it walks them closer to the idea that you two could get back together and that that would be okay, and that maybe they did make the wrong decision. It becomes more familiar in their mind, so it doesn't seem like such an extreme thing to do. And if you're not contacting them, you're not pressuring them, it can start to make them feel like this is kind of getting away from them, that they need to do something. It gives them some urgency. And so if your ex is capable of some introspection and they have mentioned commitment before and they get that you're supposed to be committed in a relationship even when it's not going necessarily great, or even when your feelings dip some, if they're familiar with that concept at all, you staying away from them, you being silent, is going to make them think about that. They're going to wonder if this was simply them not able to commit. And that can cause them to come back to you with more commitment and the idea that relationships take work. And that would be a really good thing for them to realize, to learn, and to kind of grow into due to this breakup and you not trying to get them back. Remember to get my reunion blueprint. It's only $7, and I think you'll be really impressed with it. You can get it at reunionblueprint.com. It should be really helpful if you want to get your ex back. And it's at reunionblueprint.com. You can also book a coaching session with me at myexbackcoach.com. That's myexbackcoach.com. This has been Coach Lee. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. And as always, thank you for watching.